Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of the Break-Thru Active podcast. I'm here with Mitch. How are you, mate?
Hey, mate. I'm doing pretty well, thanks. How are you doing?
Awesome. Let's go through the usual COVID-19 update. Where are we?
So we are just starting week 11. It is the 1st of June, so the first day of winter. There has been a lot of other restrictions that have eased in the last, starting today, but were announced in the last week or two. So as of now, we're allowed 50 people inside pubs and clubs. There are a few other things that have been eased up, but still no announcement date for when gyms can reopen. So we are still eagerly anticipating when that will be, so we can start to make some more rock solid plans here for the upcoming weeks to get our doors back open.
So I could be wrong, but are gyms one of the few businesses left to open? I think they are.
Yeah, I can't really think of any other type of business that isn't. I guess I'm sure there are some certain ones that may not, but in terms of a whole industry like the fitness industry, not being able to run inside, we're probably close to the last group of people that are still waiting for an announcement. So feels like we've been saying it for weeks now, but fingers crossed we do hear some good news here in the coming days.
Absolutely. So today's podcast, guys, is about a lot of our future episodes. So moving forward, definitely once the gym reopens and we have members face-to-face, we're going to start interviewing more and more of our members. And the reason we're doing this is we both feel as though that if you're looking to join a program, you're looking to start at the gym, boot camp, CrossFit, start walking, start bike riding, whatever the case may be, there is so much anxiety, fear, and nerves about that first session, that first week, and that process. And sometimes I think that you think that you're all alone and you're on that island and no one else feels that way. And I'm here to tell you, and our members also, that you could not be more wrong.
Exactly right. And I think that is why over the years we have always made a habit of posting transformation posts and photos on Facebook and telling the audience a little more about the story via Facebook or Instagram in terms of weight loss stories or just journeys in general in terms of improved strength and fitness. But I think hearing it firsthand out of the horse's mouth, so to speak, in the form of this podcast is going to be really helpful for people who, like you mentioned, may be a little bit anxious or a little bit overwhelmed and wondering whether they should start or if it is something that's right for them. Because a lot of these stories are going to be based around how our members got started. And like you mentioned just before as well, they were in the same position that a lot of our audience are going to be in when they are wondering, is this for them? Is it something that is going to be suitable for what they're after? And that's where we are just wanting to take a deep dive into the stories of some of our more successful members and ones that have been with us longer term and talk a little bit more about where they started and hopefully provide some inspiration for those that may be looking to start and are in the same boat.
Yeah, and our first guest is going to be Mark Barber on Friday. We'll dive deep into his story, but the highlights, we met him at a community festival. He's lost 40 kilos, and he's probably our greatest transformation from someone who had absolutely no interest in fitness at all. And now fast forward to 3.5 years, he's trained 4 days a week for 156 weeks. So he's done over 600 sessions, and I'm so proud to call him a friend and to say that he's truly, truly changed his life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think his story is such a great one for us to share, and one that, like I mentioned, we have shared before numerous times on our social media. But actually having a discussion with him and talking a little more about that process of what got him started, what kept him going, what keeps him going to date, and talk a little more about his accomplishments through that period as well. It has been, he would have enrolled at the end of 2016, so that is 3.5 years that he's been with us, and still, during this lockdown period, I know for a fact that he's still training at home and keeping up his workouts there. So he has really changed his life in such a positive way to the point where he is now someone that a lot of the other members do look up to. He's a member of our Curry Boot Camp, and anyone who's been a member there for longer than a few weeks has probably done a session with him and really can draw some inspiration from his story. So we are wanting just to share that and get him to share his experience with all you guys listening as well, because it really is one of those great stories that we don't get sick of hearing.
And the other thing about Mark is he's a bloke, as in he's big, he's this big, strong man, he's a larrikin, he carries on, and he is if you were to describe someone who would appear to be anxious or fearful or nervous, Mark Barber is the opposite of that. I think that's really, really important. Like no matter how strong someone exterior is, if they're unhappy with their health and fitness, it can last years and years and years, and it can take one conversation, one moment of inspiration to get someone on the right path.
Yeah, and he speaks about that as well, where he's very he speaks very well of us in the sense that he thanks us quite regularly about helping him make these this great change that he's had, and puts it back to that date when we first spoke with him. And there is an argument that if we didn't speak to him that day and we didn't have that discussion early on, that he potentially will not have been training now and wouldn't have lost all that weight and wouldn't have made such a healthy change. But he, as far as our members go, he's one of the more blokey blokes, like you mentioned. So just because he does have that tough and rough exterior, it doesn't mean that he isn't still wanting or wasn't wanting to make some changes and wasn't happy with where he was with his health. And full credit to him, he has been amazing with keeping consistent with his training. Like the rest of us, he's had things along the way that he's had to overcome. But if, like you mentioned earlier, he would have done in excess of 600 or 700 sessions in the last 3.5 years. And when you see him train, you can see that, clocking up all those hours of working out has really given him such a great level of fitness and strength. And I think overall he's just a lot healthier and happier than he would have been, 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, and Mark can see it in people too. Like, if someone's overweight, unhealthy, unfit, I truly, truly believe that despite what that person says, deep, deep down inside, they want to change. And they need to have that right conversation or have that right program to follow. And Mark Barber was that. And once we've seen that in hundreds and hundreds of people, and we can spot it a mile away. When someone's unhealthy, overweight, unfit, they want to make that change and they put on that exterior.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like a badge of honor that they wear, that they're, overweight and lazy, and something that they'll tell anyone and everyone. And sometimes it is that coping mechanism, so other people maybe can't make fun of them because they've already made fun of themselves. And we'll speak about this more on Friday, but when we first struck up a conversation with Mark at the community festival up at Curry, his first line to us was, "Oh, are you picking on the fat guy?" And that was something, we laugh about it now, but for him to perceive himself as that and making a little bit of fun of himself, he was in that position where he was making light of the situation, making fun of himself so other people wouldn't. But like I said before, absolute full credit to him. He's been incredible with keeping consistent with training. And I think one of the more, genuine things that we do see from people at boot camp and at Active is when they are starting to help others. And he is the first person to put his hand up to say that he will partner with someone new, or if he sees someone struggling through a session, he'll go and give them a few words of encouragement and motivation. And he'll often, hang back after sessions or, turn up early and chat to newer people or people who maybe aren't new. And it's really just become such a great figure up there at our Curry boot camp. And like I said before, anyone who has been a member longer than a few weeks there who has done a session with him would definitely vouch for me and say the same.
Yeah, and not only with Mark, we've got other members too that have amazing transformations, and we just want you all to hear their stories. And the most important thing, we want you to hear the start of their journey, because we find that is the most challenging thing for anyone out there to do, is just to start. And you can look at Mark Barber, another overweight guy who loves beer, chocolate, works shift work, works in the mine, works in like an aluminium plant. they can look at Mark and they can see I was that person and look how much he's changed, right? And I think people that like Mark, they identify themselves as the big fella. They identify themselves as fat and proud, and we even like in women too. It's the wine and cheese board lady, right? That's who she is, and she can't get fit and healthy because she's the wine and cheese board lady.
Yeah, and that's where obviously, Mark is going to be our first person we have on, but, we are going to be aiming to get, as many of our members on as we can, and they all have a different story. They all weren't, 6'3" and 140 kilos when they started, like Mark was, and it isn't going to always be a weight loss story. There are other members who have been with us for several years, and at no point during that period have they been overweight, but they still have their own challenges and their own reasons for wanting to start and to get healthy. And that's why we are just wanting to share a multitude of these people's stories and experiences, because like you just said there, if we are able to reach someone through this podcast by showing them and having them listen to the story of others and encourage them to want to start, then that's our job well done. And that's something that anyone like Mark, who has, achieved such great success, he's wanting to help other people. And for him sharing his story, I think is a great way to do it.
Yeah, and it just, to this day, it really bothers us both when we see people that are overweight, out of shape, and they just want, that they've lost that belief in themselves that they can make a change. And we're going to show you hundreds of examples of people just like you or who you identify as that have made that change. It really is, it's never too late. You can overcome any injury. I don't care how busy you are. We can fit you in. There's always a way to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's why transformations and sharing other people's experiences is so powerful for people who may not have been in with us and done a trial, or may not know anyone down here. Just being able to, like you said, identify with people's stories and to be able to draw some similarities between themselves and the people that we're interviewing is hopefully going to be enough to maybe be that thing that ticks them over the edge and gives them that last bit of evidence as to why they should start and why they need to start. And apart from that, I mean, we are just wanting to share some great success stories as well, for our fellow members, for the friends of the people we're interviewing, the families of the people we're interviewing. I think it's going to just be really fantastic for them to be able to hear, their friends or family member speak in detail about their experience so far and talk about how much, their life has changed since they have achieved such great things.
Yeah, and I think it's different for us being a trainer to say to someone, you can do it. And they'll look at us and say, well, you guys are personal trainers. That's your job. You haven't got kids. You're young. So sometimes when we say you can do it, no excuse mentality, they really take it with a grain of salt because they don't identify themselves to be like us. When even for us, it's still challenging. It really is.
I think everyone has their own set of challenges, and yes, we don't have kids, and we've got more time than the average person. We still have our own challenges that we have to overcome, but being able to share other people's stories. So if we are getting on, a young mum who is juggling full-time work and a couple of kids and still managing to train for 3 or 4 or 5 times a week and see great results, then other mums at home who are working and have a couple of kids and may have used the reason before that they don't have time as to why they're not doing it, seeing other people do it who are in the exact same position or at times even busier and in a more challenging time, seeing those people do it can really help put it into perspective and have you overcome some of those reasons why perhaps you haven't in the first place got started, and hopefully make a little more reason why people should make a change if they can see other people who have done the same.
Speaking of challenges, what are some of your challenges? What's your set of challenges that you need to overcome? Because everyone's so different.
Yeah, I think it is just consistency. Like I've been obviously on different seriousness levels I've been training for a long time, and just doing it day in and day out. I'm obviously at the point now where I'm not seeing these amazing improvements and gains every week or every month or every year even, but I think just the consistency of training, and it can be taxing when you are training people, 4, 5, 6 hours a day, and then you're having to do your own session on top of that as well. Sometimes you just feel like you do need a bit of time out from fitness and the gym and everything that's involved with that. But I think just the consistency, not knowing that, for me to be happy and healthy and to continue to, be strong and fit, I need to have quite a high level of training each week. So I'd have to say the consistency for me is my biggest challenge. What would you say for yourself?
My challenge is staying injury-free, and I want to maintain where I am now until I die. So that is the challenge, and I need
How long is that going to be? How many years?
I'm 78's life expectancy. So I'm hoping that I require a certain amount of hours of weight training and cardio training to maintain my current health and fitness. And as I get older and I'm more and more injury prone, I need to be smarter with my training to get that in so I can still be as strong and as fit as I am now, but not get injured. So that is my challenge.
What do you think is say one other challenge that you hear that a lot of people do face when it comes to either getting started with training or staying consistent with training?
Once you get started, the initial results come. It's when you're at our point now, when you still train 10 to 12 to 14 hours a week, and there's not much weekly change. There's not much monthly change, and that can be difficult. And for either me or you to have a drastic change in our body or our fitness and strength, we need to really, we need to lock ourselves away for a month.
What about for members? So what is a potential? What is one challenge that you hear that other people have that maybe you don't have when it comes to training?
Actually, just children in general. Just children. And I think what happens also, if we have a member that starts off like a house on fire and they're coming 5 days a week, and then life gets in the way, and all of a sudden they have kids on Thursdays and Fridays, now they can only come 3 days a week. They almost view that 3 days as a waste of time because they were doing 5 before.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking there. I think it's meeting expectations.
Yeah.
And that's something that, we are always trying to get better at that when we are managing people's expectations and setting, I guess, goals for people and talking about something that is realistic and optimal and everything in between. But there is no doubt that people have such a high level of motivation at the beginning that their attendance is normally high for the first couple of weeks or a month. And then typically we find that can level out a little bit. And like you just said there, even if it is a little less than what they were when they started, they're still in very good position. Referring back to someone like Mark, who he definitely hasn't been every single day for the last 3.5 years. And he may not have even averaged 4 times a week for the last 3.5 years, but he definitely would have averaged 3. And unless he's been sick or away, there probably hasn't been a week gone by when he wouldn't have come in 3 times in 1 week. So I think just having those expectations in a realistic sense, and that comes back to our conversation with people. And I think, obviously for us, it can sometimes mean that we need to encourage them to take a bit of a step back at the beginning. Look at coming 2 to 3 times a week, because if you are setting that goal to be a little bit unrealistic coming every single day, then that can be hard for them to maintain.
The number one member I can think of that I guess I have regular discussions with about meeting expectations is Emma Story. So for those who don't know Emma's lost 10 kilos. It'd be hard pressed to find someone in Wallsend with a flatter stomach who's had a couple of children. And she's done such an amazing job. And every week she seems to be disappointed because she's not seeing that weekly progress. And that requires just the ability to step back, maybe look at some old pictures, and just have that reminder of what that first session was like. And quite often, if we gave Emma a picture of herself on the day that she started, this is what you're going to look and feel like in 12 months, she would have signed up in a second.
Yeah. Well, I think it is challenging to sort of come to terms with the fact that you aren't going to continue to see results like you do early on. And that's a little bit what I spoke about and what you spoke about as well. And what anyone who's been training longer than a few months would see, that the results are great at the start, and then they definitely do level out to the point where you are seeing small gains and small improvements over time. And this is a topic for another day. And that's when you really have to be having goals and aspirations and benchmarks away from just how you look or about the scales.
And that was one of the biggest decisions that led us to Break-Thru Active, Adamstown and Cardiff. With the equipment that we have there, instead of Emma constantly chasing fat loss results, Emma can chase a strength goal, whether it might be a certain number of kilos with a deadlift. It might be a 500-meter row. There's so many different metrics. We can show Emma now that, hey, the scales haven't changed, but you've improved in 10 other areas.
Absolutely. And I think one of the other challenges that a lot of people make when they're starting out, because obviously, with that, we are talking about people who have been with us for a little while. I think it is just that change in lifestyle and that change in schedule, because you really are going to be having to sacrifice something, whether it is a sleep in the morning or staying up a bit later at night or giving up time on the lounge in the afternoon. You are going to have to make some sort of change to fit in your training. There's no two ways about that. And that's something that does often get, I guess a lot of people will choose not to mention that and say that you can fit it in and you're not giving up anything, but you always are sacrificing something, whether it is a sleep in or staying up to 10 o'clock at night or getting home and being able to just mosey around at home and play on your phone. But you are giving up something, and I think making that adjustment can be difficult. But once you do make that adjustment, and after a few weeks of that new lifestyle, we often hear that then people look back and think, I don't know what I was doing before this. I don't know how I was getting up at 7 o'clock each day instead of up at 5:30.
Yeah, and if you choose the lounge, you choose the late nights, you choose the comfort food, instead of sacrificing that, you're sacrificing ultimately your health and fitness. So you're right, it's 100% a balancing act. What do you want more? What are you willing to give up? And what do you want to achieve in order to do that?
And you aren't having to sacrifice time in the lounge and time on your phone and comfort food altogether, but that can come after you get home from working out. You've still got plenty of time to do that. Or in the morning, it just means that you are going to bed a little bit early. You're not necessarily sacrificing sleep. You're just going to bed a little bit earlier and getting your sleep on the other end. So it's not about giving up something, so to speak. It is just readjusting and sacrificing a certain part of it and then just making time for it, at other times of your day.
And I know for myself that if I have got a dinner out or there is a dessert plan or an event, I will not enjoy it as much if I haven't ticked the boxes during the week with my training and eating. And it makes that comfort food, it makes that experience, that night out, all the more better. I truly find it hard to relax and be comfortable if I haven't done the things that I know I'm supposed to do.
It's the same as when you might be at home and you're sitting down on the lounge watching a movie and you've got a messy house or you've got a lawn that needs mowing. Something, I should be doing that. And for me, at least, I know that might be a bad example because I don't love cleaning the house, but there are certain things that you really just don't feel like you are comfortable with until you've done the act or performed the activity that needs to be done, and then you can enjoy whatever follows a lot more.
Awesome. Well, that's a quick half an hour, mate. I think we should wrap it up there. As we mentioned on Friday, we're going to interview Mark. I'm so excited for that and to hear his story in detail over the last 3 years. It's always good to take a trip down memory lane.
Absolutely, and haven't seen Mark for it's been a while now, so it'll be nice just to catch up with him and see how he's coping with everything that's gone down here the last few months. So, thoroughly looking forward to Friday. Should be a great podcast.
Thanks for listening, guys. Have a lovely, lovely day. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.